All right, friends, welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today on October 13th. We are going to be learning enamel painting and the steps to create wildflowers with enamel paint. There's my little puppy there I was telling you about. I am going to firstly wanted to thank our sponsors, the American Legion Family of Arizona, Veterans First Limited, and the Arizona Commission on the Arts. So thank you to our sponsors. We're going to briefly talk about the items in your kit. Those items include glass bottles and a sheet of glass that happens to be framed. You can use those items as you wish. Enamel paint is really nice in the fact that it can be painted on all types of glass. Do not recommend using glass that already has enamel on it. See, I think I have a bottle, but it is alcohol. Well, it's got the printed material or information on it. And so I don't recommend using something like that. That would take away from your work of art. You also have multiple paints. I encourage you to only open the paints as you need them because they will dry faster than, let's just say, regular paint. Enamel paint is almost, let's treat it like nail polish, though it is water cleanup. So if it gets on your skin, it may take a little bit of rubbing to get off your skin. You've got the 3 pieces of UPO paper in your kit. You've got multiple pieces of the palette paper. Palette paper is the shiny paper. It's a smaller paper also. You've got a strand of fairy lights in your kit, a pour spout. What you will need today is obviously your workstation with you're all set up with your materials. No need to worry about having the glass materials available, or don't worry about the fairy lights or the pour spout. We will be using a cup of water and some paper towels. I did mention a little bit earlier that UPO paper is a synthetic paper, and that is the closest thing that we have to painting on glass. And so that's what we're going to be doing our practices. So I've got a few tips for enamel paint so the paint dries fast. Let's wait between coats for one coat to dry before moving to the next. What can happen is that enamel paint can pick right up when you go to apply another coat of paint if it is still wet. So we want to build up thin layers of paint. The enamel paint can wash off easily with soap and water. Enamel paint is ideal to be painted on surfaces that are oil-free. So if you have some own glass or bottles or anything that you have, just go ahead and give them a quick wash with some mild detergent. All right, so we are ready to paint, friends. I'm going to turn my camera off here. We're going to focus on this low battery already. All right, I'm going to plug in to another device here so I can make sure I have power for my camera. And we're going to start painting. We're going to paint the blazing star. You did receive that in an email, some pictures. There we go. Okay. Whew. All right, we're back in business here. So the blazing star is really neat flower because it almost, when you paint it, potentially could look like lilac. And I want to show you that on my bottle. I'm going to turn this camera off here. So you can see this is a very simplified version of the blazing star, and it does read as a lilac. So this is just an example I was playing with. So know that if you are not feeling the blazing star when we start those steps, these little dots, they look very nice already. So don't feel pressured into painting exactly how I'm painting, but I want to break down some of our common wildflowers for you. Blazing star paint colors are green, white, purple, and brown. So go ahead and put that paint, dish that out on your palette paper. I'm going to be doing that myself. If you have some friends that are interested in doing this activity along with you, but maybe they're not veterans or they don't live in this state, with the next email that I send you tomorrow morning with the link to this recording, also the other tutorial email, I'll send you a link to for purchasing the kit if anyone would like to purchase that kit. Okay. White, green, white, red, excuse me, green, white, purple, and brown. So why did I put yellow out? All right, so I'll be using it again anyway. Green, white, purple, and brown, blazing star. The neat thing about this particular flower is that it's very tall and slender. This is my painting version of it. It's got these little hair likes at the top. So we're going to be painting the hairs in just a moment. But we're going to start off with straight green paint and that large brush. All right, so straight green paint, large brush, and we're going to just make 2 stems here. I'm going to paint the most challenging. I consider it to be the most challenging. Remember, I'm going to do it off to one side, and I'm going to paint 2 thin lines here, one coming straight up, and I'm going to have the other one cross in front. So those are our stems. That's going to be our 2 flowers. And I wanted to do this one as the example because then that allows you to layer. You have 2 green lines here. Now I'm going to start putting in just a few little leaves. The leaves are very thin. They're thin and long at the bottom, and they fan out. I'll do both of them, but they get a little bit shorter as they reach closer to the top. I'm only going to go about halfway up on this.
Dana, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you turn off the music to heal her art, because you are not on big screen, because for some reason you're on a, I don't know the terminology. The other mic is picking up your camera and we can't see you on big screen.
Okay, thank you.
The rest of the ladies.
I will do that. Thank you. Okay, so I believe I've got my camera right here. I've got that one turned off, and I have the volume on the monitor with the Heal Her Art turned on. So somebody give me a thumbs up if I've resolved that issue. No, thumbs down. Okay.
Yeah, all I did was just click on the little picture of you. I double clicked on it and it came up as the big screen.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, okay. So in order to make the screen of my presentation with the drawings or paintings larger, let's see. Did that do it? Thumbs up, all right. Okay, thank you, friends. So let's continue with our painting here. The blazing star has these thin leaves And I'm not going to go all the way to the top. I'm going to leave about two inches or so completely free. If you can just,
Dana, you're still small on mine.
this camera right here is still small for you?
Yes.
Okay.
And Shirley's shaking her head yes too.
Okay, so what you can do is you can actually click on the image of the person and it will make them big for you. So you find the image of me and you can click on it to make it bigger.
Nope, that didn't work.
Yeah, it should be a double click.
Double click takes me back to the smaller one. Shirley's shaking her head yes.
Okay, let's see. Oh, here we go.
There you are.
Yay, I did it. All right, spotlight.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, so we've got this green in here. We now need to add the buds and the background of our flower. So I'm going to add some red. I don't know why. Oh, we're going with the brown and green mixed together. Brown and green mixed together. We're going to add a little bit of red too. I want to add some red in the mix. I like to every once in a while change it up. So let's throw in some red. I'll give you a moment to pull that red out. Now that you can see everything I'm doing. I'm going to throw a little bit of red in that mixture. So let me rotate my palette so you can see the colors. Let me direct my light here. All right, so I've got this mixture, and now I'm going to just do some small blobs at that 2 inches, and then work my way up to a nice big blob. So it's tapered, small little clusters, and then a big blob. It's a red, brown, green combo. And really, you're not going to see this. This is just our base, our undercoat. I'm going to do the same thing for the other flower. So now we've got that in place. Let's use a little bit of that red and a little bit of that purple mixed together. And remember, you can change any of these colors up as you see. What I try to do when I look at these flowers is how can I break this down to be able to paint it? What do I need to do first? What shapes do I see? What colors do I see? Right over top of some of those smaller little dots at the bottom, those are little buds. I'm just gonna put some more, it's like a pinky purple tone because I put that red in it. I'm gonna put a few small dots in there. Okay, now the green that I put on for the leaves and the stem has already dried. So I'm ready to go ahead and do another coat on that. So I can make them a little bit thicker. This will make them more vibrant in color and a little bit more solid. When you paint on glass, you'll notice that one coat of enamel paint will read as like a watercolor. It will be very translucent. So I've got a second coat of green on there so that they really pop. And I'm going to take some of that brown, that green brown combination, and add that right over top a few of the leaves closer to where those buds are. Just a little bit of brown green. So I didn't even clean the brush off. I just, from the green brown combo that I mixed up before, just a little bit thin detail of that here and there. That gives more variety in those leaves. So we're going to need to let all of this set up for a little bit here. The Blazing Star, this paint that we just put on for this underlayer here for the flower portion of the wildflower is still wet, and I'm sure yours is still wet too. So we're going to move on to another flower at the same time that utilizes some of the same colors. So you can do this painting right next to or on another sheet of paper. I happen to have a little mess of mine here. Well, I can still do the demonstration next to it. The next flower, while we let this Blazing Star set up a bit, the next flower is the cardinal flower. The cardinal flower is also very tall and narrow, and it is very similar to the Blazing Star, except for the leaves are a little bit thicker and the flowers are red. They're much smaller, and they kind of go all over the place. So we'll do one cardinal flower. I'm going to do a stalk stem that's straight up with the straight green paint. This particular flower is green, white, red, and black. So we will want to dish out some black in just a moment, but we're not ready for it quite yet. So once we put our stem in, we've got to put our leaves, and the leaves are very similar to the Blazing Star. Kind of longer, free-flowing. They taper as they get closer to the top there. And they actually go all the way to the top, these leaves. Almost, to me, reminds me of the shape of it, reminds me of corn, the way that I did those leaves there. We can go back into some wet paint when we're trying to blend, and we do want to blend in this situation. So if you have some of that brown, we can use some of that brown from the Blazing Star. We use a little bit of brown, and we're going to put a little bit of brown just on the bottom side of some of those leaves. So right over top of the green, but on the bottom side, it would read as more of a shadow. And right now we are just building up layers. So you may or may not see very much of this brown color. It may just blend in with that green since that green is still a little wet. I'm gonna clean my brush and I'm still using that large brush. I very rarely use that tiny detail brush. You are more than welcome to use that little brush whenever you'd like, especially if you're painting some fine detail on your glass. I'm gonna pick up some white and I'm gonna mix it up with some green. So I'll get a nice light green tone. And that light green will be on the top portion of some of those leaves, just right on top. And so then those leaves will really have some nice depth to them. You can also put a little bit of that highlight on part of the stem, thicken the stem up a little bit. So we should have a good amount of variety on the cardinal flower leaves themselves. We're going to let this set up a little bit and we're going to go back to our blazing star. We've got our base here. It is for the most part dry, and we need to start putting in those really pretty wisps for the top of the flower here. And that is a combination of purple and white. So to start off with, we're going to go with straight purple on the brush, and they're very thin lines and they are kind of wiggly. They go every different direction, and we go right over top of the work we did, that brown red combo. And we're gonna really fill up the bud here, the top portion of the flower, but we do still want to see some of that color coming through. I'm gonna do this on both of the flowers here. This is why I was telling you a little bit earlier about if you didn't like the way this flower looked, that you could easily turn it into some lilac, or excuse me, lavender. So just the top portion, not where those buds are at the lower section. We want to keep all of those little wisps at the very top portion of the two stems. You can see that those wisps are going off past the actual bud portion, the center of the flower, reaching out past the top of it. Closer. So I've got a good amount of coverage, and now I'm ready to go in with some lighter purple. So I just mix up some purple and white together. And I'll do the same thing right over top. You can see that they really do stand out. Just those few that I have right on top, you can see they really do make a difference. So I like to use the light in case my brush got too fat or I got a little bit lazy with doing those lines. I use that light to help break up a big cluster of the dark. And sometimes I do get lazy because right now, like, my lines are a little on the thick side. So it would be ideal for me clean off the brush after I'm done mixing up a color, because all that paint gets all built up in the brush. So it would be best if I mixed up the color, then clean the brush, and then went back to that color. Then I'd have a little bit more control and nice thinner lines. I'm gonna do this on both top portions of the blazing star flower. We are going to be adding white little hairs in there to really make some of those pieces pop, but not quite yet. I'd like to get these two, because we did two different colors on top now. We'd like to have this set up a bit. So I'll give you another minute or so on this step here to let this dry, and then we're going to go back to our cardinal flower, and we will be ready for a little bit of black. So moving back to the cardinal flower, I'm going to be adding a little bit of black into the green so I can get a darker portion on the bottom of the leaves. And I don't need that much black. The black is really intense, so it's pretty much 3 parts green to 1 part black. And I'm using this sparingly. I'm using it right where I put some of that brown, but I'm okay with the brown where it is. I'm just going to add a little bit more of this darker color to really make it dramatic. Also, it separates it from the leaves of the blazing star, because they don't have these dark sections in the leaves like the cardinal. So I've got some dark in there, and I want to pick up just some straight green. I'm keeping my brush dirty, some straight green. I can go over top of some of that to, if I was like, oh, it's a little too dark right there, I can just take some straight green and go right over top of that to break it up a bit. I do like the multi brush stroke layers, because that really gives me a good amount of depth in my leaves. And I can pick up now some of that light green, or just keep my brush dirty, and I put that on some of the tops. Because as we're adding these layers, it's really easy to cover up what you've done before. Also, since I've got some nice green on here, it doesn't matter if it's light or dark or straight green, but the cardinal flower has some little offshoots that are right where the leaf meets the stem, and they're real tiny. So I'm going to throw some of those in. It almost looks like some more growth wants to happen there, some more shoot-offs from the stem. At the top, I'm going to do almost looks like a menorah. It's got multiple pieces in here for some little tiny flowers. I'm just going to randomly pick one of the stems off the top, and I put in several little pieces that spawn from that one leaf. Every once in a while, I'm like, oh, maybe I could put another leaf in there. Why not? A little filler. So we're going to let that set up a bit and go back to our blazing star. We've got some highlights to put on the buds that are at the base of those crazy purple section. Make it brighter. Okay, and so these little buds that they're kind of like a purple red color, we want to put a lighter highlight on that. So whatever color you mixed up for that, it's like a purple red combination. We want to make a lighter version of that. So the way to do that is just add some white. Now you may want to, as you see your paints drying up, you may want to add a little bit of water into it. Oh, I can get more out of this. I can extend it. I do not recommend doing that. It can work occasionally, but I wouldn't do that, because then that just means that you have to put more and more layers on to get more of an opaque look to your paint. So I've got these little dots here, little buds, and right over top, I'm not going to completely cover them. I'm going to put just a little dot here and there, just so that they stand out a little bit more. All of these steps that I'm telling you right now are even more detailed in the video tutorial that I will share with you tomorrow, along with the link to this video. We do have a couple people that didn't get to meet with us today, so they'll be able to view that. So I've got those highlights for my little buds at the base of this flower. I'm going to call it a bud. I did do the research on the blazing star, but so we have about one more step left on the blazing star, and that is to really get some of those little hairs to pop. And in order to do that, it's even a lighter purple or just straight white. So I'm going to just try the straight white and see where it gets me. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that really makes a difference. I'll bring it a little bit closer so you can see here. They really pop with that white. A lot of great depth there. And you can use that white. Remember I was telling you, if you've got a section that maybe you just made it too thick, too many strands or little wisps of the one color, you can break it up with this color or even the lighter purple. Oh, how fun. So hopefully you can still see through to some of that brown mucky color that we painted initially. That's, if not, that's okay. This is our practice. So I'll let you finish that up, the blazing star up with those few hairs. And I'm gonna do some roll call here, check people off, and then we'll move back to the cardinal flower. All right, friends, we're gonna move now back to our cardinal flower. We gotta put some flowers in place here. The cardinal flower is red, mostly red, and we'll have a little bit of black in the mix just to show a contrast. I will show you also with some white, we can put in a little bit of highlight. I found that using white for a highlight makes it more of a pinky tone, and I prefer more of the yellow red side. So I like to use yellow, but you can use white. So we're going to be using straight red to start off with. Hopefully you do have a little bit of black on your palette there. And I'm going to do the easy part first. I'm going to put a few little dots right at the top here where we put that menorah shaped little buds. There's a few little dots there at the top. So these are all kinds of wonky shapes. I say, to me, it looks like a fandangled fork. And so they're long and skinny, and the petals go in multiple directions. So I really just have fun with it. And they come up from within the leaves, where the leaves meet the stem. I always like to refer to the original photo also. So I have that pulled up, and that's where, if you hear me pause, I'm pulling up the photo so that I can refer to it. So let's end. The flowers are at the top at the top section, so you don't have to necessarily worry about the bottom portion unless you want to. Maybe you cut that portion off when you're in your painting there. I'm going right over top some of that green. And there are some little short pieces. It's like they're hiding behind the stem. Oh, sure, I'll do another one down the bottom here. So that's just straight red. I'm gonna mix in, I'm gonna pick up a little bit of black here. I know that my red is not set up yet. There's always a do as I say, not as I do. We're gonna add a little bit of black in here on the bottom side, just of a couple of the leaves, excuse me, of the petals, just for some depth. And I do this sometimes not waiting for the coats to dry in between, because then I can blend this paint a little bit more. This paint is not necessarily the best to blend, and I take advantage of it being wet in order to blend better. So you can see a little bit of my black. I mean, it's really sticking out there. That's for my depth. And now the highlight. You can choose either white or yellow mixed in with some red to do a highlight. And I'll choose, I don't do this on every single one of the petals. I just pick every once in a while, I'll do a little something, something. A little something, something, yeah. And if it's a highlight isn't enough for me, I'll let it set up and I'll come back and I'll do another coat. So I will come back to that. I'll do another coat on that in a little bit. So that is the cardinal flower. We have 3 more flowers to go. If you would like to take a 2-minute break, I will be, the California poppy and the bloodroot flower, actually the compass, all of them are much faster than these two. These two have a good amount of steps to them. So the next 3 flowers are a little bit faster, so we'll give it Give it about 2 minutes if you need to take a break, clean your brush, change your water. Go ahead and put some of those questions in if you have them in the chat. And then when we come back, I will be sure to answer those questions. Anita, if you have question about glossy paper, can you be a little bit more specific?
I was just wondering if you could use glossy paper to paint on as well.
Oh, okay, great question. You can try it out. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. If I would say if it is non-porous, then yes, it is fine. The enamel paint, this particular enamel paint works best if it is cured in an oven. And so painting on paper in general, you cannot cure that in the oven, so it would not be ideal. But you can utilize your painting knowledge from the wildflowers and apply that with with standard acrylic paint or glossy acrylic paint on paper.
Okay, I just wondered, since I used to do cards, I got cardstock.
Yes, and you know, I've used this enamel paint on multiple surfaces, and I've always found that I prefer it to be something that I bake. In fact, I'm going to show in my screen here. So this is the painting that I did of the California poppies, and you can see there's a spot right there. Well, because of it being enamel paint and it kind of plasticky like, it did stick to a page that was on top and took a chunk off. So I would hate for that to happen to you. That is something that I noticed that happened when I just painted and let it be. So to me, it's not ideal for that type of application. All right, friends, we're moving on to the California poppies. I'm going to paint 2 poppies here. Let's go over the colors. I did pick out colors for the California poppies that are a little different than what I normally would choose for the California poppies, because I don't want all the colors to look the same as far as the stems. So for the California poppy, I chose yellow, red, and green. I also threw in some brown because I don't want all my stems to be green. So just to have some more variety in my wildflowers, I took a creative liberty and made the stems brown. So you can choose to go with the green if you'd like, but just keep in mind that to keep things more unique and creative, you may want to change up the colors that you normally would use if it helps contribute to the overall creative feel of the composition. So that was a lot of words there. We're going to be doing California poppies. Like I said, that is yellow, red, and you can use green, but I'm going to use brown. I did the California poppies 2 different ways. I did them starting off with a yellow base, which is off to my left, and then also on the right-hand side, I did starting off with an orange base. And I like the way the orange base looks better, and it made it easier for me to work because yellow is very translucent, where orange made it easier to go over top the layers and make more opaque faster. So either way works fine. In fact, before we get started, I wanted to show you, I've got a glass bottle here that I was working on. So here you can see the blazing star this is on a dark glass bottle. Then it's a little bit hard to see, but I did throw in some of that cardinal flower. And then also at the bottom there, you can see the poppy. So that poppy really does look nice and vibrant on that dark glass. But you can see I did make those brown, a little bit closer, just so that they would not just be green and blend into the green leaves of the cardinal. So I took that creative liberty, and really, when you look at poppies, yes, the stems are green and a little bit of a brown, earthy tone to them. But I chose for composition and creative purposes to change that. Okay. So I'm going to mix up an orange tone. Here. That light is there, a little bit of a sheen to it. So I'm going to try and tilt it so it does not. There we go. I'm always using the larger brush, but you are more than welcome to use whichever brush you like. It doesn't matter if it's a dark or a light orange, it's just something for a base. And this is, the red is very intense like black, so it's going to be obviously more more yellow than red. So I've got an orange. I'm going to do 2 flowers. Sorry, a little bit so you can see better. 2 flowers. I'm going to do a closed flower and an open flower. So for the closed flower, literally I'm just making a blob that's in triangle shape, but a little more organic. So just 1 coat. I have not defined any petals or anything. It's just a blob. So that's one, and I'm going to let that set up, and I'm going to paint the other. And the other one is going to be an open poppy. So it's more of a circular shape. And I'm not really worried about creating the actual individual petals either in this case. I found that when painting the poppies, if I painted the stems first, which I did in the other 2 flowers, that you can see underneath through to the stems. So in this case, I decided that's why I am painting the flower portion first, because I am not trying to see the stems through. So I'm gonna let this set up. This is just 1 coat of orange paint here. While this is setting up, we can move on and talk about the compass flower. The compass flower is yellow, and it's the one that looks like a sunflower. And I paint it as such because really it's just a reduced, everything is shrunk down. So it's a reduced sunflower. And we're gonna start off with straight yellow for that one. So on the same piece here, I'm gonna just use some straight yellow here and paint 2 sunflowers. Straight yellow. I'm opening up my little paint pot here and putting some on my palette paper. So moving on to the other side of the piece of paper, I'm letting that orange tone set up for the poppy, and so now we're going into compass. So I'm going to be painting now a large open compass, and it's open. And the cool thing about the compass, I did the research, is that they have between 15 to 34 petals. So there's no need to count petals. So there's a nice large compass flower. I'm now going to paint a compass flower on the side. And so it's many petals that just go to 1 point. I'm gonna go back to the poppy here, and I'm gonna paint another coat of orange tone. Doesn't need to be the same exact color. It's just to make this a little bit more opaque. Go ahead and clean your brush off after getting that second coat on the orange, and then we're going to go back to straight yellow, put another coat of yellow for our compass flowers. I'm going to put another coat, yellow on, straight yellow. Be a little more conscientious this time to make sure that when I do the second coat that I am going over top of the actual sections that I already had painted before, so that you can still identify the petals. So we're going to continue with the compass. Since that is wet, I'm going to take advantage of the wet paint and mix in a little bit of a green-black combination. It's a mucky color in with some yellow. And I'm going to use this around the center. So I'm actually going to make my life easier and just go ahead and put the center in first, and then I can adjust the color. So I made a dark brown, green, black, yellow combination, which looks kind of grayish, earthy color. And I'm going to put the center in here. Just this little tap, tap, tap. And I'm not putting a center in this folded flower here because you can't see it from this angle. So since I made that dark color for the center, which is a black-green combination, I'm now going to add more yellow and green to that mixture. And I can use that for pretty much piecemealing and highlighting the different individual leaves. Because right now, with them being all yellow, you can't tell what is what. And some yellow. I'm reloading my palette here with some yellow and some a little bit of green. Okay, so I've got this dark color, and I'm gonna just try it out. I mean, it's pretty dark, but I'm gonna real light. I'm just gonna, okay, so I painted on there, and it already looks really dark. So I know that it's way too dark. So I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow into it, and then clean my brush off, of course, because it's completely filled with paint. So to get rid of that, since I tested it, I'm just gonna add a little bit of yellow into it. There we go. So my goal here with this color is to provide some depth in the flower, but also help identify individual petals. So I'm gonna I mixed a little bit more yellow into this mixture here. And I'm going to, right now, I'm just putting a couple little lines coming out from the center. I'm not really paying attention so much as to what line goes to which petal, but I am doing it in an angular fashion so it does follow and mimic the shape of the flower. I'm going to continue with this color here, and some of this color I'm going to take up, and I actually am going to follow it closely to a particular petal. Not every single petal, but I do want to elongate some of this darker color. And if I feel like, oh man, oh, it's just way too much in that one spot, pick up some yellow and blend it. Just pick up a little bit of yellow. And it won't go away, but it'll soften that dark color a bit. So a question that has yet to come, but since we're painting here and we're building up this paint here, can you ever make this too thick? Yes. In the past, I have done some enamel painting that I've baked on that was more like dots. I'm just taking some yellow and I'm blending the dark lines I put in. Yellow, just blending right over top. And after I baked it, though it was on there really good, if a little kid got a hold of it and started picking at it, they would be able, because of those blobs being on, you know, the dots, they could get off some of the paint, but they really had to sit there and pick at it. But it is very durable paint once you bake it on. I have a particular glass that's all painted up, and I take it with me when I go to tasting rooms. So I've got a nice variety in there. I'm gonna let that set up, and there are some spots that maybe are a little too dark, a little too mucky. That's okay. I'm gonna go back in with some straight yellow, but I really need that to set up. So I'm gonna move to the folded compass flower. I'm gonna say sunflower. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Put a few of those lines. And again, oh, that's way too dark. Okay, no problem. Add a little bit of yellow in the mix with that. There we go. And that is shooting straight out from that central point. If you gotta clean off your brush, so be it. And a lot of that darker tone is right in the front here. It doesn't necessarily go all the way to the end of the flower petals. similar to this larger one. It's going to stay closer to the front here, and the petals in the back are going to stay primarily yellow. Oh, I like that. So I'm going to let that set up, and I'm going to move back. Move back to my pretty poppies here, which are literally just two coats of orange paint. And we'll be using yellow and red for this particular next step here. So we need to reload your red. I'm reloading my paint right now. All right, so I'm going to start off with some straight red paint. And I'm going to give an outline to help me with this kind of irregular blob here. Help me identify some petals. So I'm just going to give a nice line. I've got this one petal I've identified, and literally I just made it up right in front here. One petal, right there it is, right in front. Get a little bit closer so you can see. It's straight red paint. I just made that up. That's a petal right in front there. I'm going to make up another petal that's right behind it with some more red paint, straight red. Nice little line. There's the other one. And then obviously I've got that one more in the back there, which I have not put a line to yet. I'm going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I got that line for the back one. So now I've got 3 individual petals for that one particular blob there. I just made it up. I knew that when it's closed, those petals do overlap. And one is smaller in the front there. So I'm going to fill in some red right in front. Get a little bit closer here so you can see. Straight red right on this front petal at the bottom. And that's going to blend into the orange. Straight red. I didn't cover at the top part here. I'm going to keep that the orange color. And if it's too much, if it's too red, too dark, I can always pick up some yellow, and I can literally mix that yellow into that red right on top there. So that petal that is behind it, I'm going to mix up, since I've already got red on my brush here, I'm going to add just straight yellow, and I'm going to be a little more conscientious of where I put this paint and fill in that one petal there. So we now have identified 2 different leaves there. I'm going to put a little highlight on that leaf, or excuse me, petals. 2 petals, and I'm going to put a little highlight on this one petal. Just mixing a little bit of yellow off the side. And the petal in the back, I'm gonna just use straight yellow for. I haven't cleaned my brush off, by the way. That's a build-up process for that straight yellow, since we've already got that orange tone as the base. So I'll let this set up and I'll put another coat of yellow on it. So we've got identified 3 petals there. Trying to get so they don't have a glare. There you go. 3 petals on this folded poppy here. I've got this large blob here, and I'm gonna now just use straight red to start off with again. And with this red, I'm gonna start in the center. And from the center, I'm gonna start identifying some petals. So I'm really just putting a few little lines here, working my way out to identify different petals. So it really is quite ugly at this point. So I'll go a little closer so you can see. Look how ugly that is. But you gotta start somewhere, right? So that's just straight red. I'm gonna pick up some yellow. I'm not cleaning my brush off, and I'm gonna put yellow on the outer edges. I'm gonna just paint in yellow on the outside portion. Now I've already starting to identify the petals. So I want to be careful of my red. So I'll bring this a little closer so you can see. Still pretty ugly. That's still, we're gonna let that set up and dry and go back to our compass flowers. We're gonna be using that mixture of the black, green, and yellow combination. If you want to touch up any of your compass flower, let's just say, oh, it's way too much dark there. You can add some of your yellow over top of some of those darker sections to lighten them up. A little bit of yellow. So I'm going to use that dark color to create a base here, a base portion for this one bud. And that mixture is that black green combination I was telling you about earlier. And there it is. At the same time, I'm going to put in the stem. for the compass flower. And that thing is kind of thick, but you know, start off thin and you can always build it up. So I'm using that dark color, but I also can make it a little bit more exaggerated by picking up a little bit of black. And on one side, I'll do a little line of that black-green combo. So I'm going to let that set up, and I can come back and add another layer of that. While we're here, let's go ahead and talk about the leaves for the compass plant. They're interesting type of leaves. So we start off with a long piece, and then from there, it's almost like little sprouts. And when you get to actually putting all the wildflowers together, I don't know necessarily if this is a leaf that you're really going to want to put in, just because it does take up a good amount of space, but also I don't think it's the prettiest looking leaf. So you get another coat of the black green combo for a little of the contrast in the leaves themselves. And that is it for the compass plant. We're going to go back to, I'll let this sit here so you can continue working on that. And in a moment, we're going to go back to our poppy, and then we'll move to our bloodroot. If you have any questions, go ahead and pop them there in the chat. We'll give about another minute here on the compass and then move to the poppy. Okay, let's get back to our poppies. So on the flower that is folded, the leaves or the petals are not open. We're going to be using the straight yellow on the outer section of that. This will require 2 coats, just because, like I said, that yellow is just so translucent. You can also add some of that yellow as a highlight. I think I was doing a little bit of that earlier when I was blending with the red. And then you can go back in and you can really make this particular petal pop by just a nice thin line of red to really make it stand out. You can put a little bit of veins in it with the red too. There we go. So let's go back to the open poppy here. And I'm going to really give it some yellow on that outer edge. And I'm going to start really focusing on the shape of my petals. I'm letting that red stay dark. And this yellow is not going to stay yellow. I'm using it as a catalyst to move some other colors around. And now I'm going to take straight red and I'm going to start defining the edges of some of those petals. And sometimes I go past the actual flower itself, and that really, that helps give it some more depth and dimension. I can fill it in with some red or yellow. That's really starting to come together now that I've done some of those outlines on it. Once this sets up, I can go back into some of those red lines and I can soften them with some more yellow towards that outer edge of each individual petal. If you want to keep the yellow line or the red line right up against that yellow, you can. But I like to add a little bit more yellow just to soften some of those lines. It doesn't need to be outlined each individual petal. And the center of the poppies are a yellow tone. So I'll put some yellow in the center there. And there we have it. So let's, we'll do the stems of the poppies real quick. I'm just going to choose what color I have on hand. I did brown in my demonstration. I'm going to use this dark green that I used for the compass. I'm going to just use that color since I have it available here. And for the folded poppy here, it's kind of like got a little bit of a dash or a line. And then the stem comes down, it's pretty thin. And then there are a few little lines that come off of that. And then little sparse looking sprigs. That's what I call them, sprigs. The small detail brush would be ideal for these. All right, hopefully you're all hanging in there, friends. We got one more flower to do. While you're finishing that up, I'll give you 2 minutes. So we'll reconvene in 2 minutes. If you want to change out your water, stretch a little bit, go to the restroom. We got 2 minutes. All right, friends, we are back. And we've got one more flower left. It is the bloodroot. And believe it or not, the bloodroot is part of the sunflower family. Or excuse me, it's a member of the poppy family. And it is a white flower that is comprised of 8 or more petals. The center is a light yellow. And the stems are more brown than green. I didn't make that part up. That actually is reality of it. And the large green leaves come from the base of the stem, and they curl. So they kind of read as blobs when you paint them. I would not recommend putting them into your wildflower paintings, but if you need filler, I would not choose this one, but you could. So when painting this, our paint is going to be mostly white and black for the bloodroot petals itself. We're going to be also using a little bit of yellow for the center and some green and red for just a little bit of depth. Also, because bloodroot does have a little bit of a reddish tone for the stems, that's where that red comes into play. I didn't realize how popular bloodroot was and how it has been used in traditional medicine for quite some time. White, black, yellow, green, red. Those are the colors we're using. And it is a little challenging to see when painting this. So I'm going to paint mine a little bit more on the dramatic side. That's why you see mine look kind of a gray tone here. It really looks beautiful on that darker glass, but it's not ideal to paint a white flower on a white background. So bad on me for choosing bloodroot, but I just thought it was such a pretty flower, and I like little white flowers on the dark colored glass. I just think it's quite beautiful, and so bloodroot it is. If you don't like the bloodroot, even if you did something like a baby's breath, would be very nice, look very elegant, and a good filler for your wildflowers. So to start off with, I'm going to mix up a light gray tone because I need to get these petals in place. And I'm going to start with the petals on this one here. So I'm going to do 2 flowers. I'm going to do one that is mostly closed. There we go. Almost looks like a tulip to me. And then one that is partially open. So when I do the partially open, because you're looking down on it, the petals in the front are much shorter. So keep that in mind. They're shorter petals, longer in the back. And that is just a real light gray tone. In fact, when you paint this on glass, I would recommend you do more on the side of white and less of the black. This is our last flower here, and then we are done for this evening. The video tutorial from tonight's session and the recording that I made that is nice, fluid, and clean, step by step, really close-up detail for you for each individual wildflower. I'll be sending you a link to that video also in the email tomorrow. I can't wait to see what you come up with. If you decide, okay, all right, Dana, I know how to work the enamel paints, and I really don't care for wildflowers, but I'm just gonna go for it, do it. You've got that glass, you've got the paints, the brushes, everything you need to create your own masterpiece. So that is gonna set up a little bit. While that is setting up, let's go ahead and put some stems in place. I'm gonna mix up keep the white, light gray tone I have on my brush and just add a little bit of green. I'll start off with the green. So it's a light green tone. It's a little mucky because I'm using that gray that I already had on my brush. And they're narrow, long stems. While I'm here, bloodroot has just a little bit of a red tone in the stems. So I'm gonna pick up a little bit of red. I'm gonna start from the base here I just put a little bit of red on my brush, and I can always cover it. That's why I'm starting at the base. So I can always cover it up. So it's a little bit of red. There it is. It looks a little funky. So I'm gonna probably put some green back over top of that. Just blend it a little bit more with some straight green. I just put a little bit more green on my brush to help blend that away. It is a lighter tone, so you could also put a whitish, a very light green. I don't like doing the white with the red because it reads pink and it's not really the color we're going for. Probably a brown would look nice for that. So I've got the stems in play. I'm still letting this top portion dry up a little bit, and I've got to put these leaves in. So to start off the leaves, I'm going to go with a base, and that I'm going to put some blobs. The blobs are tapered, so it is a little bit of taper on the top, and then it wiggles its way out. This is just a base coat. Remember, we need to build up the layers here. So there's one blob. I'll put another blob on this side. And, you know, I'm not a big fan of this particular leaf, but because it's so many different ways that you can be shown. I mean, this particular one, the one I'm working on right here, that could be folded in half. And this one could be mostly open, but partially folded in half. So there we go, 2 blobs there. We'll let that set up. We'll give another minute for the top portion here. While we're giving that a minute, I will give you the last bit of information that I need to share with you for tonight, and then you don't have to worry about me sharing it later on. So like I said, I'm going to be sending you an email tomorrow. Then you will have a link to this video from our live session, but also we'll have a link for the video that I created that is the tutorial of each individual flower. In fact, I go step by step through all of these different flowers. So all the different ways that they, the petals are open and closed, the different orientations of the flowers themselves, and again, the leaves. I go step by step through all that. It is very brightly lit, very professional. I spent a lot of time on that video. I know you will love it, but you can also fast forward through it if you are tired of hearing me talking. You can literally just watch the steps if you don't want to hear me talk. I tried very hard to take out all the ums and all the nonsense that I say and jibber jab as I go along giving the steps. Also, I will include a link if you have some friends or family that would like to do this activity along with you. They can still do it and be on the same page as you later on in the week. I will be locally distributing kits, and this will be also in the email for a small nominal fee. We will deliver the kits to friends and family. The program for the Heal Her Art Next Stage October enamel painting is full, but if they would like to do the same activity as you and participate, they will also get a link to those tutorial videos, but not to the Zoom session. So they will not be able to participate live with us on a weekly basis, but they will have all the resources available to them that they need in order to create some beautiful enamel paintings. Okay, so I said all that. Let's go back to the top of our flowers here. I've got this closed looking flower here. I'm going to define some of those petals. So the front one here is going to be a little bit darker. I'm going to mix up a little bit of a darker gray tone. Remember that black is really intense, so it doesn't take very much of that. So if you got it too dark like I did here, I just pick up a little bit of white and I'll actually just mix that right in place there. And I'll go back and forth between the dark and the light, and I'll get that nice medium tone that I need. I'll go in and I'll take more of a white, and I will go right over top of that other petal, straight white. And I want that other darker petal to be in the front, so I'm actually going to redefine that. All right, maybe I got a petal in the back here that I haven't accounted for. It's kind of open there. Can mix up a little bit more of another gray and paint that in. And I can define that in just a moment. So I'm gonna let that set up first, and then I can come back to that and define each individual petal. So we're gonna come to this mostly open flower here, and I'm really gonna keep this darker gray tone, and I'm gonna do something similar to what I did in some of those previous flowers, is use that dark from the center and work its way out. I didn't go directly to the center because my center in this case here is gonna be a bit of green and yellow. So there is that dark. I'm gonna clean up my brush and just pick up some white here and just blend some of that dark. So I'm gonna go back and forth between the dark and the light here. The lighter portion is towards the tip of the petals. So I would be putting straight white on here, but unfortunately on the white paper, you would not be able to see it very well. So it is a little bit on the grayer side. So I'm going to bring this a little bit closer so you can see my detail. And so you can see that just by putting in those gray lines, I'm really individualizing every petal just by adding those few little brush strokes. And on the tips, I'm going to let this set up and I will add more white on each individual tip. More white once this sets up. So we'll go back to the green blobs. So because these leaves are very translucent, they're very see-through. The light comes through in multiple directions, and depending on where the flowers are setting, and you'll see in the tutorial video, you really can't be a particular kind of person when painting these leaves. They're just so much variety based on cast shadows, being one over top of the other, folded, curved, you name it. There's just so much going on that it's really hard to get one leaf that is open that you can easily identify. So let's go ahead and use that gray tone that we had on our brush from the top of the flowers here, and just do a real thin outline on one of the sides. And then we'll pick up some straight yellow and we'll start doing some veins. I like this gray tone because it shows a little bit more depth. So I'll take the gray and I'll clean up my brush and I'll water it down, and I'll add a little bit of that gray, just to tone that real vibrant green down. So I've got my outline there. In fact, I'm going to add let's lighten up these leaves just a little bit and add some straight yellow. Some yellow. Make them a little bit more vibrant. Tone that green down, but yet keep them light. You could go in with some straight green or the green-black combination and do a little bit of an outline to help make the shape more, I guess, verified. It really is a shape. I meant it to be that shape. Black might be a little bit too dramatic, but you can use the green. So we'll come back to that. We're going to add some veins in there in just a moment. Let's come back up to our flowers. We've got the one budding blood root that needs to be identified. These different petals need to be identified. So I'm going to use a stark white, and I'm just going to identify the easiest petal I can, which is that one white one off to the side there. the gray one that's right next to it, and then the darker petal on the far left. And that can still have some light in it. Even though it is dark, I can bring that light back in like I did in that poppy. Remember I had that yellow right in the red? Do the same thing with the white. There you go. So there is a closed flower, and I'm gonna just help that little stem out there. There we go. Need to have a little bit more substance closer to the top there, so I just thickened it up just a tiny bit. Also, I'm gonna put a few little bit of green veins coming from that stem, and a little bit of red veins, just a little bit. Straight red might be a little too much, but I'm putting that in there just so you can see what that looks like. I'll bring it a little bit closer so you can see. Just a little bit of veins, and that can be a lighter green tone with some yellow or some white. But probably a good idea to let that set up a little bit before getting too detailed with those veins. Moving over to the mostly open bloodroot flower, I'm going to add a light green in the center. I just put a little bit of green there. I'll show you a little bit closer. Straight green. Well, it's a lighter green. That's going to set up a little bit, and then we will go to the veins in our leaves there. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them now. If you have a question a little bit later on when you're experimenting, feel free to shoot me an email. It is the same email address that you received the Zoom link from. All right, only 2 steps left in this, and then we are done for the evening. I'm going to let the center of this flower dry up just a little bit because I'm going to put some yellow on top, because that is the center of the bloodroot is got those yellow pieces sticking out of it. So to my veins here, straight yellow is what I'm using. The veins come up, let's just assume that this is the center. The veins of this leaf are very similar to the ones that I remember growing up and seeing on the East Coast. So they've got the one vein straight up the center of it, and since this one is folded, it's gonna be on the side, on this far left leaf. And then from there, they're squiggly that come out towards the outer edges. Now there is a little bit more to this leaf, but I will allow you to look at the photos and you decide how you would like to paint them. I tried to simplify it for you by going this route. All right, so I've got some pretty veins in there. I'm gonna call them pretty because it is unique to this wildflower here. And then that straight yellow, it's just a little tap, tap, tap to represent the center of the flower. I'll show you a little bit closer. There is the flower and the leaf. So I just did about taps of that yellow right over top of the green. The green is still showing through a little bit. All right, friends, well, to clean up, please be sure that you clean your brushes very well. Enamel paint is a little different than acrylic, that once it sets up, it is not easy to get out of your dry brushes. That is all that I have for you this evening. Thank you so much for joining me. If you missed any part of that or would like a recap on that, you've got 2 viewing options coming to you tomorrow. Have any questions, please send them my way. Have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.
Thank you.